Amen. Thank you, and be seated if you would. This past Tuesday mornings early, sometime between 3 and 4 a.m. is the only time during the week that I look over my sermon notes for this Sunday. This Sunday sermon was written long before this week. And this past Tuesday morning, sometime between 3 and 4, the TV was on in the background. Light volume was turned down where I just had to have a little bit of noise. And I was looking over this Sunday morning sermon, and I heard the CNN reporter say, if you're wondering what will be eaten Sunday night during the Super Bowl, and it caught my attention. And I set the sermon notes down, and I looked up at the TV screen, and I listened, and I jotted down some notes, because I'm going to be eating something tonight that I hope you'll bring. 40% of Americans tonight will enjoy chips and dip. That's approved tonight, if you'd like to bring that. 36% of Americans will be eating chicken wings. That's approved. 35% of us will be eating pizza. That's approved. I think that's on our menu to bring tonight. 29% of us will be eating nachos. All of those are approved. If you want to bring those tonight, you're welcome to. That's really not what caught my attention the most. This is how many Americans tonight will eat 1.4 billion chicken wings. That's enough chicken wings, according to this news report that I watched, to circle the earth 3 times, touching each other. We will eat 11.2 million pounds of chips, 8 million pounds of guacamole. Amen. I'm just saying. Some of the food tonight, if you come to the Super Bowl party tonight, and I encourage you to, some of the food tonight will be provided, and you will provide some of it. That's the key word for us today, provide. Now, the title of the message has to do with Jesus providing. Now, not chicken wings, nachos, guacamole, but what God has laid upon my heart long before Tuesday morning when that story ran is that God laid upon my heart for you and for me to hear this morning is that Jesus has the power to provide for you. And I don't know what you might have wandered in here today needing, what I might have wandered in here today needing. I'm not 100% sure. I'm fairly sure what I need. I think you're fairly sure what you may need. I just want us to be convinced today, based off of through the songs that we either participated in singing or had sung to us today. I want us to gather today before we leave this place is that Jesus has the power to provide everything that you and I need. He is capable of providing your need. Would you find in your copy of God's Word the Gospel according to Mark? We're studying on Sunday mornings the Gospel of Mark, second book in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, and would you find in particular the first chapter? Fairly easy to find in your copy of God's Word or maybe in the phone or tablet that you might be using today, but Mark, and in particular, in chapter 1, would you scroll down, and when you have found verse 21, would you say, I'm there? Show that to your favorite neighbor beside you. Let somebody see where that is in your copy of God's Word. Mine is right there. Are you? Got it. Hey, ours is on the same page. That's kind of cool. Hey, if you can and you'd like, in honor of God's Word, would you stand and allow for me to read Mark chapter 1, beginning with verse 21, and I will read through verse 34. It'll be printed on the screen behind me. Mark 1, beginning with verse 21. I'm reading today from the Christian Standard Bible, the CSB. They went into Capernaum, and right away he entered the synagogue on the Sabbath, and then he began to teach. And they, verse 22, were, my translation says astonished. Yours either says astonished or it says amazed. Really the only two words that are used. At his teaching, because he was teaching them as one who had authority and not like the scribes. And then verse 23, a man with an unclean spirit was in their synagogue. And he cried out, "What do you have to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come here to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Verse 25, Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be silent, come out of him." And the unclean, verse 26, spirit threw him into convulsions, shouting with a loud voice, and came out of him. And they were all amazed, verse 27 says. And so they began to ask each other, "Who is this? A new teaching and with authority." And mine has an exclamation point there. He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him. At once, verse 28, the news about him spread throughout the entire vicinity of Galilee. Now the story changes a little bit. Verse 29. As soon as they left the synagogue, they went into Simon and Andrew's house with James and John. Simon's mother-in-law, verse 30, was lying in bed with a fever. And they told him about her at once. And so he went to her, and he took her by the hand, and he raised her up. The fever left her, and she began to serve them. Verse 32, and when evening came, after the sun had set, they brought to him all those who were sick and demon-possessed. The whole town, verse 33 says, was assembled at the door. And he healed many who were sick with various diseases, verse 34, and drove out many demons. And he wouldn't permit the demons to even speak because they knew him. And let's pray together. Father, would you let us see that truly you have the power to provide whatever we need. Don't let any of us leave today doubting that power. I pray, and I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, and be seated. Would you keep your copy of God's Word open? Because I really want us to just see two truths today about the power that Jesus had. You can come here today doubting whatever power you want to doubt. Political power or power of your strength or your might or someone else's. We could discuss power of all sorts, but I don't want us to leave this place doubting Jesus' power. Today I want us to really just see two things, and two in particular, about these two events in the life of Jesus. I want you to see with me, first of all, that Jesus' words, first of all, his words are astonishing. I could have used the word amazed because those two words are the only two real words that are used in your text. Whether your copy says that his words were amazing or astonishing, it doesn't matter. Both of them are the same. But his words are astonishing. And I wanted you to hear that. I wanted you to see that. I wanted you to catch that, because I'm going to make the argument, if you'll let me, that his words have power. And that if you'll just give them a chance, if you'll just give Jesus' words, the Bible, if you'll just give it a chance, it'll get you through whatever it is that you're facing. I know, listen, we live in a day and time when we're going through some tough stuff. I get it. But I'm going to make a case, if you'll let me, that His Word, it has the power to provide. I'm just convinced of it. Jesus was in Capernaum, and that's going to kind of become, as we study it, that's going to kind of become His headquarters. It's going to kind of become His home base. He's going to venture away from it. He's always going to kind of come back to His home base. That's where He's going to kind of feel comfortable. It's kind of where He's going to come back to rest and relax and kind of catch up. It's kind of where some of His buddies lived, and He's going to kind of always kind of come back there. It was kind of a natural place for Him to be. There was Roman troops there, so it was kind of a good place where He was able to come back and naturally combat some of the forces that He was going to face throughout His ministry there. It was a thriving place. It was a happening place. It was a good place for Him to come back and let them see that the kingdom of God was at hand, and He represented that kingdom of God. It was a great place for Him to come back and talk and teach. And although Mark chose not to tell us what He was teaching, he chose to tell us that whatever it was, it caught them all by surprise. Mark does not tell us what Jesus said. He just chose to tell us there in verse 22 that He said it different than everybody else said it. I'd say to you, it's pretty cool to say something different than everybody else said, but it's more cool to say it differently than everybody else says it. Notice what verse 22 says. It says that they all talked about not what He said, it's just that He said it with authority. It didn't say that He said something different. You see, I did my study on this. I did my study on how the rabbis in that day would talk. I did. And they kind of would do this. The rabbis would step up when they would begin to teach in the synagogues, and that's where Jesus was. They would step up and they would say this and this and this, and then they would cite their sources. They would say, in my day and time, this is what I do. I would step up, and if I really wanted to give some credit to something, I would say, and Billy Graham said. And y'all would all go, oh, well, if Billy Graham said it, then it's cool. I mean, that's what I would do. You know, I would cite my sources. Well, that's what all the rabbi teachers would do at that time. What Jesus did, Jesus just got up and cited Himself. He just got up and spoke. That's what they said. I mean, that's look at, I'm printing it for you. Matthew's version of this, Matthew's version is just a little bit different. Look at what Matthew said. Matthew said, when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were astonished. There's that word again. They were astonished at His teaching because He was teaching as someone with authority, not like their scribes. See, Jesus just spoke. He spoke as someone that knew what He was talking about. He wasn't talking about somebody else that knew what they were talking about. That's a big difference. It's a big difference to talk to somebody that has talked to somebody that knows what they're talking about. It's when you're talking to somebody that knows what they're talking about, I would say to you that Jesus is the one that knows what He's talking about. Hey, can I make two statements about Jesus? I'm not going to cite Billy Graham, although y'all know I was saved under the preaching of Billy Graham. So there, in my generation, that's Billy Graham carries some weight in his preaching and teaching. So I'm not disclaiming that. I just want to make two statements about Jesus. I want to say two things about Jesus. One, I want to say that Jesus' words for you and for me are still available. You still have them. You have a copy of Jesus' words probably with you right now. If you don't have it printed, you probably have it in a phone or tablet. We still have the Bible. These are His words. They've been preserved through time. You and I still have them. Kim and I were watching the news day before yesterday, and one of the literary greats of our time died day before yesterday. Mary Higgins Clark died, and when it came across the news that she died, Kim said, she's the queen of suspense. Kim is a reader, and she said she is a great author, and she died. I was not familiar with her writing, but she said she's a great author, and I didn't know her. I was not familiar with her, but I do have in my hands, I have a list. I printed them off. A list of the world's 100 top works of literature. I did 5 Google searches, and I compared them all, and I copied and pasted it, and I've got the top 100 literary works of the world. And I printed them off. And I could go through this list, and I could name them. And I could ask you, I could say, hey, raise your hand if you've got this one. And there's no doubt you would have 1 or 2 or 3 or 5. If you're a reader, you would have some of these. But I would venture to say that there's not any of us in here that has all of these or has read all of these. You probably haven't. Even if you're an accomplished reader, you probably have not read all 100 of these. And I don't have a lifelong goal of reading all 100 of these. Okay? I've read many, had to, and wanted to read some. The Bible's not on here. But I want to prove my point. I'm not going to go through this list. You can say amen if you'd like. Amen. But I want to prove my point. If you have access to the words of Jesus, would you raise your hand? Oh, isn't that astonishing? You want to know why? Because the words of Jesus are still available. You have what 2,000 years ago, a bunch of people looked at each other and said, those are amazing. He speaks not like our scribes. He speaks as someone with authority. I would say to you that his words are not just still available. His words, number 2, they're still amazing. They're just as amazing now as they were then. They are just as powerful. They are just as astonishing. They're the same. I made a point a while ago to say that I'm reading this morning from the Christian Standard Bible, the CSB. Do you want to know why I change translations so often? We're in the 5th Sunday of the month. And this is the 3rd translation that I've used this year. I've preached from the New English translation. I've preached from the King James Version, and now I preach from the Christian Standard Bible. Do you want to know why? Because I'm so committed that I'm gonna read a translation, and you're gonna go, I like that one, and you're gonna grasp it, and you're gonna start reading it, and it's gonna become amazing to you, and it's gonna be everything you need, and you're gonna start reading it. And you're going to go, oh my goodness, this is unlike anything I have ever read before. It has authority. It has purpose. It has stood the test of time. It changed my life. None of these. I've read 38. I've read 38 of these. I went through, I've read 38 of them. None of them changed my life. If anything in this book ever changed your life, would you look at your favorite neighbor and say, hey, this book changed my life? Tell that to somebody close to you. Hey, truth number one is that Jesus' words are astonishing. Truth number two that I want you to see with me this morning. Jesus' healings. His healings are complete. His healings are complete. His words, they're amazing, they're astonishing. But we read two stories today. We read a story about something that Jesus said, and we read a story about something that Jesus did. His healings are complete. Our text has several healings. It has several different genres of healings. We have Jesus speaking and demons flee in fear. We have Jesus telling them to be quiet and they cower down in fear. We have him casting out unclean spirits. We have him going to Peter's house and his mother-in-law is sick and all Jesus does is just lift her up by the hand and her fever leaves. We have something interesting in verses 32, 33, and 34, something about sundown. This is kind of cool. Look back at that. Can I put it on the board for you? It says, when evening came after the sun had set, that they brought to him all of those who were sick and demon-possessed. The whole town was assembled at the door. He healed many of them while they were there with sick and various diseases. He drove out many demons, but he wouldn't let the demons speak because they knew him. The comment about sundown is kind of interesting because it tells us that the Sabbath was over and that the people could begin to move around again. And it means that the whole town would have been outside moving around because they weren't able to move around before sundown. That's not hyperbole. That's not an overstatement. That's not an exaggeration. It means the whole town would have been there. It meant that everybody was there. So when it says he healed everybody, it meant that he healed everybody. That's not somebody making a claim of something that wasn't true. It's everybody. Some of us here today that thinks that some of this doesn't apply to you. Oh, come on, y'all are looking at me funny. Some of us are here today thinking that some of this applies to only those people. Thank you, RD. Thank you. Some of you here today thinking that, well, God will heal those that have faith, or God will answer the prayers of those who have faith, or God will, hey, the whole town was there. Hey, will y'all let me make a couple of points here? Because it says the whole town was there. I'm not embellishing. I'm just reading it. I'm trying to preach the Word of God, okay? I'm reading it and preaching it. Y'all with me? Let me make two statements. Let me make this statement. All can receive help from Jesus. All are able to receive help from Jesus. When verse 33 says the whole town gathered at the door, I'm going to take it literal. I'm going to take it as literal as I can. And I'm going to say that all can. And I'm going to base that off of verses like Romans chapter 2, verse 11, that says that there's no favoritism with God. I'm going to base that off of verses like Acts 10:34, that says that when Peter began to preach, he says that, now I truly understand that God shows no favoritism. So when it says that the whole town gathered at the door and that Jesus healed them all, I'm going to say God doesn't show favoritism, and that if you've got something that you need God to do in your life, that He's got the power to do it, and that you're able to get the help that you need. I'm going to ask you to claim that. I can't claim it for you. I want to. I just can claim it in my life. I want you to claim it in your life. All can receive help. Statement 2. Jesus has the power to provide. Exclamation point. He has the power to provide. He does. Matthew describes this event this way. When evening came, they brought to him many who were demon-possessed. He drove out the spirits, and with a word, he healed all who were sick. Luke describes it this way. Luke says, when the sun was setting, all those who had anyone sick with various diseases, they brought them to him, and then he laid hands on them. On each one of them, he healed them. I'm not embellishing, guys. I'm not making it up. I'm just preaching the Word of God. All I'm doing is asking you to is believe it. But Donnie, I've been praying about this a long time. Oh, right. I got it. I get it. How many of you, be honest, how many of you have been praying about something a long time? Raise your hand. Okay, I get it. Does God always work on our timetable? Look at your favorite neighbor and say, I've been praying about this for a long time. Be honest enough to tell somebody close to you. Hey, there's been some startling claims made about Jesus. I'm going to make some over the next 8 weeks. I'm going to make some like Jesus has a universal appeal. He's got a magnetism about him. He's the most fascinating person that's ever lived. He's the most, he crossed class line. He crossed cultural line. He caught and held the attention of people like nobody ever has. He has an effect on history like nobody ever has. I'm gonna make some unbelievable claims about Jesus over the next 8 weeks. But I'm gonna make 3 statements about him right now, if you'll let me. That I hope will help you if you just raised your hand that you've been praying about something for a long time. I want to make 3 statements that based off of this passage, that I hope will help you if you've been praying about something for a long time. Statement number 1 is that Jesus knows everything. And he knows that you've been praying about something for a long time. Jesus doesn't always work like what he did here in this text. Now, he worked like that here. He did. The whole town gathered at his door. I'm taking it for face value. He said it. It doesn't matter if I believe it or not. It's true. I'm taking it for face value. The whole town was there. He healed them all. And I'm gonna based off of this, I'm gonna say he's gonna provide healing for you. But whatever that is, he knows what you need. He knows how long you've been praying for it. He knows what you've been praying for. He knows whether that's something that you have been praying for him to supply to you, something that you're going through, something that you have prayed and you've begged him for. He knows everything. Mark doesn't include it here. John tells us, hey, go read this sometime. John chapter 2. Just read this sometime. John tells us in this story set, Mark doesn't, John tells us that Jesus met a guy named Philip in the same town where Peter and Andrew were from, Bethsaida. And that Philip went and told his friend Nathanael, hey man, we found this guy from Nazareth. You need to come meet him. And Nathanael mouths off and he says, Nazareth? What good can come from Nazareth? And Philip says, man, don't be mouthing off like that. Just come meet the dude. His name is Jesus. Just come meet him. Hey, I'm adding a little East Texas lingo in there if y'all don't mind. He says, just come meet this dude, man. You're going to like him. And so the next day, Jesus is walking along, and Philip and Nathanael come walking towards Jesus. This is John chapter 2. They come walking towards Jesus, and Jesus looks at Nathanael and says to Nathanael, now there is one sharp brother. All right, I added the brother part there, but he says, there's one sharp dude. Okay, I added the dude too. He says, there is someone to which there is no deceit at all. Now, those are Jesus' words. And Nathanael looks at Jesus and he says, you don't even know me. And Jesus says, Nathanael, not only do I know you, but I saw you yesterday when you were sitting under the fig tree. And it says that Nathanael it almost was as though he blushed. Because it says right after that, John said that no one else knew that Nathanael was sitting under the fig tree. Now, we know nothing about what Nathanael was doing under the fig tree. All it says was that only Jesus knew that Nathanael was sitting under the tree. It was something that Philip didn't know, Peter and Andrew didn't, nobody else knew it. Only Jesus knew that. And I would say to you that you might have been praying about something for a week, a month, a year. You might have been praying about something for 10 years. Hey, hear me. Jesus knows how long you've been praying about it because he knows everything. He knew Nathanael underneath that tree, and friend, he knows you. He knows everything. Not only does he know everything, can I make a second statement? He not only knows everything, Jesus owns everything. Those two words sound so much alike, but they mean so different meanings. He owns everything. So if you're praying about a need that you have, Jesus owns it all. Don't be discouraged because you've been praying for something and it hasn't come yet. The one to whom you are praying has the power to provide it. If you're praying for something, don't give up because the one to whom you're praying has the ability to be able to give it to you when the time is right. He has the ability. Hey, God gave me a verse here. Look at what the Bible says in Deuteronomy 10:14. Check this out. God gave me this verse. Somebody needs it today. He would not have wasted this verse. I didn't go looking for it. God gave it to me. Deuteronomy 10:14. The heavens indeed, the highest heavens belong to the Lord your God, as does, what does it say? And what? And everything in it. Okay, God gave me that verse. That belongs to somebody. Claim it. That belongs to somebody. So, Jesus knows everything. Jesus owns everything. And Jesus, number 3, has a purpose in everything. He had a purpose for being in that house that night, and he has a purpose with you being in whatever situation you're in right now. I don't know what that situation is, but if he knows everything, he does. And I don't know what you need in that situation right now, but if he knows everything, he does. And I'm limited. The person sitting beside you is limited. But he's not limited in any way. He is not limited in any way. He is able and he has a purpose. He is at work. He's on the way. His purpose will be fulfilled. He is strong. He is able. He is powerful. Punxsutawney Phil made a prediction this morning. You trust him if you want to. He's only been right for the last 120 years, 34% of the time. You trust him if you want to. You either pack up your winter clothes and get your summer clothes out, or you don't. My winter clothes and summer clothes are the same. If you live in Texas, that's the best thing about it. This book, you can trust it. Would you bow your heads, please? For just a second, would you just entertain the idea for just a second? Would you just entertain the idea that Jesus has the power to provide?